the market responded in ways nobody predicted. So in both cases, the infrastructure preceded.
You need a 100 megawatt hyperscale data center campus. In a market in Africa where good day, everyone. Morning here. It's afternoon here, sorry, in Nigeria. But it's very early morning where our guest is joining from. And welcome to another edition of Africa Hyperscalers Global View, our interview series with leaders that are solving seemingly intractable global digital infrastructure challenges. And today's conversation is one that I have been looking forward to for a while. So today we're speaking to Johnson Agogbua, Chief Founder and Chief Executive Officer of Kasi Cloud Data Centers. And I'll just do a very quick intro of him before we bring him on to the session. Johnson is an internet technologist and global infrastructure executive with over 30 years experience. Mr. Agogbua is highly regarded and recognized for building scaled digital infrastructure, telecom networks, and hyperscale ecosystems across international markets. He's currently, as I said, the founder and chief executive officer of Kasi Cloud Data Centers, where he's spearheading a $250 million investment to build a 42-hectare digital campus and 100 megawatts hyperscale data center in Lagos. He previously worked at Facebook as the director of Facebook's connectivity deployment solutions, where he led global infrastructure initiatives to expand high-speed internet across underserved regions. He had also led the UUNet, now Verizon Technologies global network engineering teams that designed and deployed the largest commercial internet backbone in the world. Johnson is a member of the Technical Advisory Council of the United States Federal Communications Commission and co-founded the MPLS Forum and served as a member of the founding board of directors. But that's not all. He has also served as a key leader of Alcatel-Lucent, where he built the Application Solutions Division and recruited and led the joint technical team that architected the foundational 4G and LTE network architecture for Reliance Jio in India. Reliance Jio currently has more than 500 million subscribers and is expected to raise about $4 billion in an IPO soon. It's a huge pleasure to speak with someone of your digital infrastructure stature on the Africa Hyperscalers Global View. Please, we welcome Mr. Johnson Agogbua, Chief Executive Officer and Founder, Kasi Cloud Data Centers.
Thank you, Tim. It's my pleasure to join you today.
Thank you very much, sir. So I know you don't do a lot of interviews, so thank you especially for joining us. And I want us to get right into it. You have built a career, so your profile is a very illustrious profile, and you have built a career around solving difficult infrastructure challenges, leading Facebook's connectivity work to connect millions of underserved people was one of those hard problems. Helping shape the framework for global MPLS architecture was another hard problem. Deploying some of the world's largest commercial internet backbones, UUNets, was not an easy achievement. Building the foundational 4G LTE network infrastructure for Reliance Jio, which is unarguably one of the biggest telecoms networks in the world, was another, and now supports about 500 million subscribers, active subscribers, maybe one of the most consequential infrastructure achievements by an African technology leader. Now, with Cassie Cloud, you're building a 100 megawatt hyperscale data center campus in a market in Africa where the 2 megawatt facilities are the norm
Yeah.
across most of the continents. What explains this instinct to take on challenges that many consider too complex, too early, or too difficult? Why do you like hard things? As Nigerians say, why do you like
So,
hard problems? And
uh,
where
uh,
does this
Tony,
resilience, where does it come from?
Tony, I really want to compliment you and thank you for creating a forum for this conversation. I think you're delving into the consequential challenges of our time when it comes to digital infrastructure. So it's my pleasure to join you. Uh, you see, after 30 years building infrastructure across three continents, more than three continents, I came back with clear-eyed view of what the challenges actually are, um, because I've seen them solved elsewhere. And by the way, to answer your question, you know, it's because they are there and they have to be solved. When I wake up and run a marathon, which I used to run in my younger days, it's hard, but we do it as humans because it's one of those challenges. It's one of those barriers that you create, you solve for yourself, right? Um, for us, the most persistent challenge is not what people think it is. It's what most people think it is. It's actually not fiber. It's actually not spectrum. It's not even power, though power is the most visible constraint. The most persistent challenge is the absence of foundational infrastructure, what I would term as anchor infrastructure, that creates the condition for everything else to follow. Now, at UUNet, we did not wait for the demand for global internet to emerge. We built a backbone and then the demand followed. At Reliance, Mukesh and his team did not ask whether India was ready for 4G before deploying 1.5 billion connections worth of infrastructure. We built at scale and the market responded in ways nobody predicted. So in both cases, the infrastructure preceded the demand and the infrastructure itself created the demand. Now, Nigeria has been caught up in the opposite trap, actually. The infrastructure investments or investment has lagged the demand, which means every enterprise, every fintech, every government agency has had to route its most critical workloads to servers in Europe, in America, and elsewhere, paying foreign costs, accepting foreign latency, and then building under foreign legal jurisdictions. The result is a digital economy that is growing fast, but leaking value at every layer. And the solution is what we're doing at CASI, build to the standard the market requires before the market has fully materialized. And that is key. And that's what leaders do. And build to hyperscale, build AI ready, build with direct grid access and carrier neutral connectivity, and trust that the demand will follow because the demand is already here. And that's why the directive from CBN, the demand just happens to be elsewhere.
Absolutely. So you've done this global roles across multiple continents.
Mhm.
What did this global experience teach you that is directly relevant to what you're building now. And great explanation of how infrastructure usually precedes demand. You saw that with connectivity projects at Facebook. You saw that with telecoms projects at Reliance Geo. You saw that with MPLS. What does that? How is that experience? What did it teach you about what you're currently building in Nigeria and Africa today?
Yeah, I convey two lessons to the pupils that we teach at Kasi Academy, that you really need to focus on fundamentals, the foundational element, follow first principles, right? And the problem is always one of scale, right? We had data centers before Kasi came, right? We had interconnects before Kasi came. We can collocate in Africa, but what is the scale that we should be building to? And that is actually the critical question to ask. What is it that's foundational to the Africa market, to the various regulatory jurisdictions? 240 million people in Nigeria and growing fast with a population, digital first, because they are already mobile first. They exist on mobile phone. At that scale, what is the fundamental infrastructure that should be here? We're already on cloud. It's just that we're on foreign clouds, right? We already have
Yeah.
applications for, members of the community. We're interacting with them. The experience is not that good. So the problem is one of scale. The problem is delivering infrastructure at scale and zeroing in on what's foundational. I think cloud and now AI has truly changed everything about digital infrastructure, about digital platforms, and consequently, digital economy.
We're gonna go into, and there are some things you've touched on in this question and this answer and the previous answer. Well, you've touched on AI and how AI is foundational to African digital infrastructure. You've touched on the CBN policy. We'll come to that. I want us to segue into a bit of the connectivity that you've done very well before, but now to sort of look at Africa's seemingly intractable digital infrastructure challenges. You have served as director of Facebook connectivity, Facebook is one of the largest. That connectivity project was one of the largest in the world at the time. You led infrastructure architecture for Reliance Geo. Again, scale. You designed and deployed one of the world's largest networks, backbone networks. Again, scale. Now you're back in Africa to build.
Hello, Tim.
See as and I've you've
Tammy,
am I
can
clear?
I implore you to repeat your question again?
Okay.
You faded out on the question.
Okay, let me repeat the question again. I said you previously served as director of Facebook connectivity.
Mm-hmm.
You led infrastructure architecture for Reliance Geo,
Mm-hmm.
and you deployed one of the world's largest commercial internet backbones. All these were highly scaled up projects.
Yes.
Now you're in Africa to build. What do you see as Nigeria's and Africa's most persistent internet and digital infrastructure challenge? And I alluded to that first answer you gave where you spoke about the absence of foundational infrastructure. So I want you to take it from there to say what are the most persistent that you have seen and how do you think they can be addressed?
Yeah, we do have enough submarine connectivity to the continent. We actually have the beginning of a great fiber infrastructure and more coming, right? 5G is here. It's not scaling as quickly, but we do have 4G, right? Power is a problem that all the various regulatory jurisdictions are working to solve, including Nigeria, right? But the fundamental problem is what engages you and I, the digital lifestyle, the digital product that we consume. The brains of that resides outside of the continent, where latency then becomes a problem, where overall cost becomes a problem. It actually limits uh, the ability of enterprises to scale. And at the same time, it compromises the experience that the consumers enjoy. Hence, you can't really prioritize your spend towards this digital consumption. And I think that's the real problem.
Hmm.
And and our regulators are beginning to recognize it. The enterprises are beginning to recognize it. There's lack of supply.
Hmm.
So if you look at our continent, we house anywhere from 1 to 2% of the global capacity,
Mhm.
right, on data centers. If you then look at the most consequential technology shift of our time, which revolves around AI and AI-enabled solutions, right? We even contribute less than that to the global capacity, right?
Hmm.
That is the problem.
Hmm.
So we then import our digital consumption.
Hmm. We're serving a demand outside the continent.
That's it. That is, it's that focused. That
Hmm.
is what brought me back to Africa. That's what brought me back to the Nigeria market. And that's why I live in Lagos. Although I often spend time in Silicon Valley, like today, but my home going forward is Lagos. That's, you have to be fully planted in the soil to be able to till it.
So you have spoken a bit about you've spoken about why you launched Chassis. You have currently launched the first phase of the 100 megawatts hyperscale data centers. Your first phase was about 7.5 megawatts. And then you have spoken about this problem you're trying to solve, the problem of latency, problem of digital sovereignty, problem of um, sourcing local demand, addressing a local demand
That's it.
with foreign services and foreign. And I want to come to that because a lot of enterprises in Nigeria today still rely on some of those foreign AWS,
Hmm.
Azure, cloud. Where where does Cassie Cloud fit in this? As is it as an alternative to foreign cloud, um, as a complement or as a local execution partner? And then we'll go into the CBN after this question, into the CBN policies really understand.
Yeah. Tammy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Let me check my internet let me quickly check my internet right now.
Okay, Tammy, I can hear you. If you
Can
can
you hear
hear
me now?
me, yeah, I can hear you clearly. So
Okay.
I heard the first part of the question, whether CASI is an alternative, a complement, or a local, execution layer for the hyperscale. That was your first part of your question, correct? Hello, Tammy.
This is quite a horrible network day. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. It happens. I initially thought it was my connectivity here, but I've been running ping traces and trace routes, and I seem to be okay on my side. Sorry, I still do tech work.
Yes, yes, no, it's fine. We'll edit this anyway. So I'm going to repeat that question again. So
Yes.
we'll just edit out the bad patches. So
Hmm.
I was saying that we've been discussing and you have just launched the first phase of the hyperscale data center. It's going to be 100 megawatts at full capacity. You've launched 7.5 megawatts. And we have discussed and you have said you're trying to solve the problem of serving local demand on foreign soil. That's one, reducing the latency issues, and obviously digital sovereignty, and of course the cost components. I think those will be the four major problems you're tackling with CASI. And I was also saying that a lot of enterprises in Nigeria and Africa rely on these global providers, Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, and so on. Now, with this project, this very big project that you're doing, where does CASI fit into this conversation? Is CASI a local execution layer for anybody who wants to have local capacity? Is CASI a complement for Azure and AWS and so on? Or is CASI clearly a better alternative for them?
It's actually simple. We're building an open access data center, on open access infrastructure, open access interconnection facility. We are a local execution layer and a complement all at the same time. So we focus on the utility elements of the digital infrastructure. So um, if an enterprise is fully committed to a global hyperscale platform, we become the execution layer for that. If the same enterprise commits to a local, uh, sorry, a call just came in, commits to a local cloud provider, we will partner and become an execution layer for them. And if the enterprise have their own private cloud implementation, we'll partner with them and become an execution layer for them. So we complement and we provide a platform for scaling. That's what we do. Uh, we are not in competition with a global hyperscale at all. In fact, it's the opposite. We are building the infrastructure for hyperscaling of cloud and AI platforms.
Absolutely. And that's a good message to put out there. So you're building the hyperscale ready data center for them to come and
That's
bring
it.
in our data on their servers into the country. But I want us to go into, and that this is the biggest topic at the moment today, the CBN policy, the CBN's data localization policy. So for context, the Central Bank of Nigeria, Nigeria's apex bank, has issued a circular directing banks, fintechs, mobile
Hmm.
money operators, and other payment service providers to disclose. There was a three-pronged disclose ultimate beneficial ownership, localized payments transaction data generated in Nigeria, and comply with the new market share limit aimed at reducing concentration risk. What really affects us is the second one, is localizing
Yes,
payment
sir.
transaction data generated in Nigeria. Can you provide us some context on this circular and this directive? And where do you see this directive as? Is it an infrastructure catalyst? Is it a compliance issue that many fintechs and banks would have to deal with? What exactly is it?
It is unambiguously both. But the balance between burden and and being a catalyst depends entirely on when you start.
Hmm.
So there's now a forcing function for institutions that start early. It becomes a catalyst for their business. For institutions that procrastinate and delay, then it becomes a downstream migration challenge. So the infrastructure is here. CASILOS 1 is open, right? For us to begin migration. It's not just CASI. We have others in the marketplace. You have Equinix, you have Digital Realty, Rack Center, ADC, OADC, MTN, and so on and so forth. So we are not lacking. And these data centers are at various scaling stages, correct? But for our enterprises, being able to migrate your data back to local infrastructure is a journey that needs to get started early. Migrating payment transaction data in country to the in country infrastructure is a solvable engineering problem, and with a clear deadline and clear business benefits, better latency, reduced FX exposure, and regulatory confidence. I think the entire ecosystem should rally around the financial sector um, and jointly solve this directive, solve to this directive period. And by the way, it's the most consequential policy signal that we've
Absolutely.
received to date.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the strongest demand signal for, and it's not just Nigerian data centers, it's African data centers who, if you look at the estimates, most of up to 80% of African data is processed, is stored outside the continent. So we see that the rest of Africa is looking at Nigeria to see how this policy plays out, to see how execution is done, and to see the benefits, obviously, that comes out of this, so that they can now begin to execute varying policies. Of Ghana has a Ghana's central bank too also just had
Mhm.
a policy around local cloud, around data sovereignty. Yes,
That's it.
again for financial services providers, they haven't done as much. But they will also be looking at us. All the smaller countries too will be looking at Nigeria to see how this plays out. And I think it's just a very big boon, a big win for not just the data center industry, it's the whole digital infrastructure ecosystem in Nigeria. Local data centers improve local interconnections, improve local ISPs, improve the whole value chain. What's that saying? When a rising tide lifts all boats, right? I think
Indeed.
absolutely,
Indeed.
absolutely.
Tell me, I start with the financial segment itself. It is a huge downstream win for them.
Hmm,
Migration is always a headache, so you kick the can down the road, so to
hmm,
say, right? But if you look at benefit of starting now, when you're transacting on local currency, when you're beginning to demand that the hyperscale cloud show up locally to continue to serve your needs, right? When the overall user experience just jumps up and improves. You and I have been in places, say restaurants or buying goods, where we will finish at the exchange and we are waiting for value to transfer. And then you go from your card to your app and back down to your card again, right? You've been in those moments, correct?
Yes.
Uh, that's a friction for the transaction companies, for the fintechs. That's a friction to the banks and especially to the entrepreneurs and to the enterprises that just want to conduct commerce. So it's actually a win for end users, boost overall experience. They can then prioritize their spend on digital consumption. It's a boost for the enterprises that provide those digital products, right? And for us, the infrastructure providers, it's a gauntlet down. Can we deliver at standard? Um, and that's really what the question is. And the answer is yes.
Hmm. So I want to close with AI, Africa's cloud future, and obviously what we need to do as a continent. So I think over the last 2, 3 years, AI has been the biggest technology conversation. AI globally, we've seen some of those huge AI-led SpaceX. Was that the company SpaceX's IPO? It was AI-driven. XAI, his company putting AI data centers in space, and we're seeing that come to Africa. Not as much, obviously, but we're seeing those initial conversations. And AI is changing that conversation globally, that infrastructure conversation globally, especially around compute, latency, which we have, I'm sure we've said latency at least 10 times during this conversation, power density, cooling, GPUs. Kasi Cloud has been positioned as the messaging is hyperscale AI ready data center. What does this How does this mean, this Kasi Cloud position around the AI focus, around the capabilities? What does it mean for Africa's digital infrastructure future? What is your roadmap? You're in Nigeria at the
Okay,
moment, but are you serving only Nigeria? Do you plan to serve all of Africa?
indeed. So let me take the two questions. One is the effect of AI on our roadmap specifically. About 4 years ago, I got a call, right? Asking us, can we actually scale to 30 kilowatts per rack?
Hmm.
And what will it take to get to 50 kilowatts per rack? That's when we were having conversations locally, and enterprises and network operators are saying that they will need 3 kilowatt per rack, maximum 10 kilowatt per rack. That is an order of magnitude shift.
Hmm.
That was the clarion call on infrastructure roadmap for me personally, for Cassie. And we sat down and we looked at it. I am familiar with hyperscale infrastructure. We help build some of those, and familiar with the advanced machine learning work that was happening at Facebook, now Meta, right? So I understood it clearly. Now, um, what we decided to do then was to pivot.
Mhm.
We pivoted in the overall energy density. We believe that our strategy of being power grid aligned was critical so that we can get just unstoppable power capacity. We changed our power architecture so that we switch at higher voltage. than most data centers. And then we structured our data halls so that each data center that we build can itself receive significant capacity. So the LOS one that we built, this is important, has 4 data centers on it. So if you look at it, it's a very, very mighty and tall building. And why is that the case? It's you have 4 data centers which share nothing architecture in them, and each one of them capable of 24 MVA. That is, in essence, when you derate it, 19.2 megawatts, right? But most of it will go into other sort of services, and what ends up on the rack can be much, much less. So that was the first problem that we needed to tackle. What is the minimum power to each data center? We have 4 now. We're lighting up 1, and we're lighting up half of that 1, not all of it. So the next is the energy density per rack, right? We're bringing liquids into the data hall itself on this first iteration. So we segment it such that we can have cloud sections where we retail, and we will have GPU dominant sections where we will bring liquid to the rack and ultimately direct to chip cooling. And that's where you get the enormous density of 100 kilowatt per rack. So in modern data centers, you have to solve to that to at least one order of magnitude rack density. You have to be able to go from 10 kilowatts per rack to 100 kilowatts per rack. And that's what CASI has done, is to ready the infrastructure for that demand.
So you mentioned, while you're speaking, you mentioned the ideal, how you've built your data center to serve the 4 different halls. And then you're serving a spectrum. So you have the colo retailers, you have a bit of cloud, you have the hyperscalers. Is it just those 3 segments? Do you have plans for others? Okay.
Yeah, we do not have 4 data halls. We have 4 data centers in that one building, and each data center with multiple halls, minimum 2 halls per data center. So if you
4
look at the
data
ground,
centers in one.
yes, and that is what people do not realize when they look at the building and when they walk into the campus. It's when you take a tour and walk around, and then you see the first hall on the ground floor, you see 2 more halls on the other side, and you begin to then ask questions. And we dedicate the infrastructure to each data center. And that is the message that we are slowly trying to make sure we understand, is that we're not building 4 halls, we're not building 8 halls, we're building 4 data centers with share nothing architecture.
Interesting.
And it's all in one enclosure. Yes. So a given operator, a given hyperscale can walk in and say, give me my own data center. I only want my people in it. The elevator stops there and nobody else can get there. Even CASI people cannot get there. The fit out is to their specification, and the power is strictly theirs. The cooling is strictly theirs. The interconnection that serves them is to their specification. So that's what it really means to build to hyperscale requirements.
So you've spoken on interconnection, and in closing, who do you currently have connected at the data center? And who do you plan to have?
So this is a really, really good question. We're looking for all the subsea cables to enter. We're in the process of the first one. We expect to get all of them on board. We have agreements for the metro providers to come in. In our foundry, we already have two subsea connections into the foundry, and we have a couple of metro providers there. The expectation is they will all migrate to LOS1 campus. We've built our meet me rooms to be able to accommodate 96 racks of both 4-post and 2-post. That is scale. We've built our vaults and our huts to be able to support the entire campus. So, and we've actually done work to make it easy to put in the easy button for operators to come, and we've opened our doors. We are not precluding anybody. So if you want to establish a pop in Cassie, now's the time. It is really the best time to move. And we are calling on everybody, please come.
That's a great closing. Cassie Cloud open for business. Thank you so much, Mr. Agogbua. This has been a very useful conversation on what it takes to move Nigeria and Africa from connectivity growth to serious local compute, serious cloud, and AI infrastructure capacity. And it's been great learning that you have 4 data centers. I wasn't aware that was. So this is the scale that we really need to double down and talk a lot more on. Congratulations on your launch. I wish you the very best, and thank you again for joining us on this session.
And Temi, let me continue to thank you and congratulate you for the great leaps and achievements and for creating this forum. I would invite you to the site, and the next conversation we have in this forum should be done from the data center.
Absolutely. I had narrowly missed coming. I remember the launch. I couldn't. I had a personal issue at the time. However, the theme for this was actually I saw Guy on the way after the data center tour. So Guy and I had quite interesting conversations. That was actually where this came about, because Guy was the one who said they are doing hard things. But this is a hard thing. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Likewise, Temi, take good care.
All right. Take care, sir.